calling this meeting of the North Harris County Regional Water Authority to order. It is January the 6th. Happy New Year, everybody. We do have a quorum, and Director Ramsey will be back in a second. Our first item is to have the pledges, and I've asked Mr. James Armand of Bamwell Utility District to come up and lead us in the pledges.
Thank you very much.
If y'all please stand.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. The second item of business is public comments. And first up is Mr. Jerry Holman.
My name is Jerry Holman. Good evening to everyone. Happy New Year. I will be discussing several agenda items tonight. Item 8B, selection of a lobbyist seems to be an afterthought and late to the game proposition. You may want to rethink the authority's strategy, as it is apparent that the board is unclear on the authority's position on critical issues. Please consider tabling this item, whereas to make sure that you are very comfortable with the potential choices and options that may be available for your current and future consideration. A prime example is item 10, House Bill 1532. Here we go again. Take a stand. I would strongly suggest that you vote on a resolution to not support House Bill 1532 in a show of good faith and a start to rebuilding a working relationship with the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District. I am very concerned with item 10B, House Bill 1643, and believe it to be a backdoor avenue to future fees being placed on the local water authorities, including the North Harris County Regional Water Authority, to pay for dredging that other entities are already responsible for. This is legislation that could lead to a higher cost to the authority's ratepayers. This board should unequivocally vote down item number 12, order adopting a policy and procedure regarding reimbursement of private defense costs. The audacity to somehow attempt to shift public funds for the reimbursement of one's private defense costs is wildly inappropriate and will be heavily scrutinized by all. Any private defense costs would be subject to standard criminal and/or civil relief as per the law. The right to request reimbursement from the plaintiff would be appropriate. If a public official knowingly breaks the law, is he or she entitled to a legal defense paid by the government entity represented? Where does accountability for one's actions come to matter if there is no consequences? How would this potential expense further the purpose, goals, and objectives of the North Harris County Regional Water Authority? It does not, and is counterproductive to proper governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Mr. Ron Chapman. With MUD 222.
I hope that the North Harris County Regional Water Authority will be on track to meet the mandate established by the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District on a timely basis and avoid the potential disciplinary penalty for not meeting the mandate. I guess it's dreaming to expect 2025 will be different from the past couple of years. Right out of the box, Tom Aldis has introduced a bill to do just what the Bill 63820 was supposed to do, and that's take us away from the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District. The it seems that we're gonna have obstruction to meeting the mandate of the surface water conversion program. Some members of the board have stated there's too much construction and have on every opportunity attempted to delay and defeat the construction due to ignorance of the need of these projects. There have been many comments that we do not need all the loans that we've made at low cost from the authority, for the authority. That's on one hand. On the other, there was an attempt to get an unlimited expense account to go to Washington DC to acquire federal funding. If we've got too much money now, what do we want to get more for? There's been expressed intent to reduce the surplus funds without any knowledge of the future need of those funds. Future costs for repairs for the authority cannot be predicted. What the elimination of these funds what would the elimination of these funds mean to taxpayers? I'd like to invite the authority members to consider what delays and obfuscation will mean for the taxpayers in terms of providing water needed by the residents and businesses in North Harris County, and the ramifications of future increased operation costs. Finally, why should the taxpayers be responsible for a program or a policy to protect board members or others who have violated the law? Why should we as taxpayers be providing cover for them? If you have done something that is not appropriate, you get sued, it's your problem, not the taxpayers.
Thank you very much. I believe that's the end of our public comments that have signed up. Well, the next item is administration of oaths of elected officers, but our attorney's not here yet. So we're gonna move on to agenda item number 4, messages from the president and board members. We'll go with Director Barker, and then Director Graham, and then Director Fessler, and then Director Ramsey. Anything? 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 Okay, that's easy. I just wanna say, Happy New Year, thank you all for coming tonight, for all those that are here. If you're listening online, thank you for listening online. If you're only listening online, then you're not able to give public comment, but you're welcome to give feedback through our website. Anyone's welcome to give feedback and comments through our website. So, hopefully we don't have too long of a meeting since it's gonna be 32 degrees in a few hours, right? So, that's all I have for now. I have other comments on, certain agenda items, so I'll save those for later. All right, moving on to agenda item 5. Approving the minutes from the December 2nd special and regular board meetings. You all received these, they were distributed at least by Friday, I believe. Hopefully you had a chance to look at them. If there's no corrections or objections, the minutes will be approved as distributed. Are there any corrections, directors? Okay, so then the December 2nd special and regular board meeting minutes are approved. Next is agenda item number 6, Finance Director's Report, including the monthly financial report and payment of bills. Take it away, Cindy.
The financial report is as of November 30th, 2024. Our total enterprise fund balance is $1,145,592,347.62. The breakout and charts are on the screen and in your board packet. The detailed reports are provided in the packet and posted on the website. The design, engineering, acquisition, construction, consultant, and expense checks are totaling $23,519,617.90 are presented for your approval and signature. And I'd like to request approval of financial report and authorization for payment of the bills.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Director Ramsey?
Yeah, I was gonna make that motion too, but before we go into a vote, I just wanted to thank Cindy. I had asked for a ledger of one of the accounts that went back several years, and she provided that. Just to let you know, Cindy, I've looked at it. I've got some questions about it already. I'll probably look at it some more, but at some point I'll forward those to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I think those unanimous. Thank you very much, directors. Next, well, before we have the discussion, bond refunding opportunity, is our, attorney ready for the oaths of office, or?
We are.
Yep. Or we could do it later, whichever you'd like.
Ready to roll.
You're ready to roll. Okay, we're moving back to agenda item number 3, administration of oaths of elected officers. Director Fessler and Director Ramsey were reelected,
Yes.
so they're the ones that
Please
are.
stand.
Just us two, or?
Just us, you two. You raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, state your name,
I, Kelly Fessler,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute
that I will faithfully execute
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
of Director of North Harris County Regional Water Authority
of Director of North Harris County Regional Water Authority
of the state of Texas,
of the state of Texas,
and will, to the best of my ability,
and will to the best of my ability
preserve, protect, and defend
preserve, protect, and defend
the Constitution and laws of the United States
the Constitution and laws of the United States
and of this state,
and of this state,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome back aboard, directors. Next is agenda item number 7, discussion of bond refunding opportunity. And I've invited Leslie Cook, she's our co-bond counsel.
Co-financial advisor.
What is it? Co-financial advisor, I'm sorry. Co-financial advisor to speak on the refunding opportunity.
Well, I feel like can I stand right here? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. As Melissa said, I'm Leslie Cook with RBC Capital Markets. We are co-financial advisor along with GMS. You know John Howell, of course. He handles your Texas Water Development Board transactions as well as the daily advisory services of the authority. RBC's job really is to handle anything that happens in the capital markets. Now, the authority has not been in the capital markets since 2016. However, I'm here to present an opportunity today for a refinancing opportunity of 2 series of your bonds. Now, these bonds cannot be sold with the Texas Water Development Board, and that's why I'm here. This would be a capital markets transaction. So I think the board should have a printout. It's a very short presentation. I'll give a light overview. If you turn to page 2, this is a summary of the authority's outstanding debt. So you have a table and 2 charts. This is up to and including the last series of bonds that was issued in 2024 in the amount of $118 million with the Texas Water Development Board. What we're focusing on tonight are the series 2013 and 2014 bonds. Now those bonds are currently callable. And what does that mean? That means that the IRS allows us to refinance, or what we call refund those bonds on a tax-exempt basis if there are interest cost savings to be had. Similar as a mortgage, you would refinance that if the prevailing interest rates were lowered and then you took out the mortgage. Same idea here. And so that is the case for the Series 13 and the Series 14 bonds. So turning to page 3, this is really the meat and potatoes of the analysis. This analysis was run the morning of January 3rd, so very much up to date. And so what RBC is projecting, and I will say these are conservative projections because the last thing we want to do is overpromise and underdeliver. And also we can only predict what might happen in the market today. We can't know what would happen on the day you price the bonds if you choose to move forward with this transaction. So this is our best guess as of the current market. And so what we're projecting is that you could save up to $8 million in interest cost by refunding the Series 2013 and 2014 bonds. That is through the remaining life of the bonds, which is through 2035. And so on an average annual basis, we're looking at about $720,000 of interest cost savings. We're not restructuring the debt, we're not kicking the can, simply replacing more expensive debt with cheaper debt. I will point to a number on this page, which is present value savings as a percent of refunded par. In our world, we like that number to be above 3%. And so right now you're at 8%, and so that's a very comfortable margin over sort of the industry standard. Essentially below 3%, it would be a lot of work to do a transaction for not enough savings. And so 8% is a very comfortable place to be. Even if there is some volatility in the market between now and pricing, you would stay comfortably above that 8%.
Excuse me, which number is it?
So it's in the chart on the bottom left. You can see the aggregate, it's the last row there, the 8.1%.
Okay.
Now that is net, of course, and when I say net, there is always a cost to doing these transactions. And so let's say we estimate a $70 million bond transaction. In this case, we could guess that cost of issuance could be around 1%, so about $700,000. That would be split, these are approximate numbers of course, but I want to be fully transparent that there's obviously a cost to doing this transaction. That would be split between the underwriter's discount, so essentially what we would pay the underwriters to sell the bonds, and then the other half would, be shared among your professionals, your financial advisor, your bond counsel, the AG, ratings agencies, etc. But all of those costs would be baked into the transaction, and so none of that would come out of your operating fund. And then the next couple pages are really just RBC economic outlook for 2025. With the new administration coming in, it's a little bit hard to know what's gonna happen. I think the headline news really was when the Fed met in December, although they did lower the rates by 25 basis points, they indicated that they're gonna be a lot less aggressive in 2025 with rate reductions as they were in 2024. So I think our best guess is that we're not really gonna be leaving 2025 in a much different rate environment than we're entering 2025. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then from a logistics perspective, if you would like to move forward with this transaction, really I just need the go-ahead tonight from the board that you are interested in moving forward. And then it's really up to RBC, and of course staff will be integral in this process, putting together an offering document, engaging the ratings agencies, and we'll also be recommending a pool of underwriters that will be best suited to sell these bonds on your behalf. And then at the February meeting, we would do all of the approvals, the bond resolution, approve the sale of the bonds, and then I'm thinking as early as late February, we could probably sell the bonds, and we would close about 4 weeks after that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
What are you estimating the new bonds, the rate would be?
So we've got a TIC, so it's sort of like an all-in interest cost estimate of, I think it's 3.48.
Okay. 3.43 and 3.5.
Yep, exactly.
What are we paying on these now?
So the coupon, or the interest payment on most of the bonds that we'll be refunding is 5%.
What does this do to the duration of the debt?
Doesn't do anything. So we're not changing the principal payments at all, we're simply reducing the interest.
Okay, and it resets the clock on when they can be called again.
It's a good question. Typically, you do a 10-year call on your bonds, and if these mature in 2035, so maybe there wouldn't be a call on them, so they might be non-callable.
Immediately callable.
We'd have to talk about that, call features, but we can explore those options if you're interested.
Yeah.
We've done this before,
Yeah,
and it saved us millions,
yeah,
so I'm ready to do it again.
okay. Yeah, the last refunding transaction was the 2016 transaction. It was a new money and a refunding together. And then interest rates have been they were historically low after that there weren't as refunding opportunities.
There's three bond series at 5%, but you're only refunding 2 of them. Why is that?
Well, my guess is the other one isn't callable. Let me see what you're. Are you referring to the 2016 bonds?
Yeah,
Those are callable 12/15/2026. So we can't do
Oh,
anything about
okay.
those today.
Well, that's what that first call date column is for. Okay.
And this is something you've been watching for a while.
Yeah, we kept an eye on it, and especially if we don't think, so we're past the call date now, and if we don't think interest rates are going down any further, then I would do it now if you're ever gonna do it. Go ahead.
The other side of that trade is there's a lot of people that think interest rates will be going down next year.
Sure,
So what's the
it's a little bit hard to predict, and so if you go past your call date and you wait to refund the bonds, you're just sitting on bonds you're paying interest on bonds that are more expensive than they have to be. And so you're costing money in effect. There was an estimate I saw, it was about every 6 months you wait, given we don't know what interest rates are gonna do, obviously, but if they don't change, every 6 months you wait, you cost yourself $500,000.
Well, without knowing the parameters of that, that's meaningless, but I'm looking at it from the standpoint that there's clearly excess supply of bonds right now in the marketplace. And with the new Trump administration coming in 16, 12 days, I don't know what it is, he wants interest rates to go down. I feel like that'll probably happen. I'm completely in favor of this. I just think prudent thing to do might be to wait 6 months and see if rates really do start coming down. Or
Sure,
the Fed
so it
speeds
could work in
things
your
back
favor,
up.
or it could not, it's
Yeah, it
so
could
hard to
be-
predict,
It could be
right?
either way, but if we wait 6 months, that doesn't really hurt us in any way. If we pull the trigger now, that locks us in for the next 10 years.
Sure.
This is something you've been watching for a few years, right? And so they've been callable for a while.
So the 2014 bonds just became callable in December, and the 2013 bonds have been callable for 2 years.
And if we make a decision tonight, when do we get locked in?
Whenever we price the bonds, and we can discuss when that would be, but probably late February.
So if Trump moves quickly on those rates,
Well, that's what I say, it'd be better to just wait a meeting or two and see what happens. I'm not talking about kicking it down the road, a year or anything like that. It's just, let's see what happens this first 100 days, so to speak.
what you're saying is we should do it now, not wait, right? That's your best estimate?
It's very hard to say, and unfortunately, when the Fed does something, the municipal market does something else, and so we actually experienced an increase in our rates after the Fed meeting, because people were not interested in buying fixed income. And so it's very hard for us to be able to predict how anything might shift.
So the bond rates have more to do with what the Fed does than what the president does. Is that what you're saying?
We typically move with treasuries, and so whatever moves treasury bonds, municipal market will there's usually a little bit of a lag, but we'll move with treasuries.
I think there might be a little bit of value in waiting at least until Trump takes office and see at least what happens. If that's gonna cause any major shifts anywhere. And so, we got, less than a couple weeks,
we can discuss
Actually-
this in February.
actually, 2 weeks. So, your date of February would be.
It's
well
flexible,
after-
yeah,
Okay.
and we're presenting the opportunity tonight.
Right.
If you'd like us to get started, we can get started. If you'd like to sort of hold off, we can hold off.
So we say get started and we have you speak about it in February, we're not committed to it.
You're not
Yeah.
committed to anything, right?
when does the rates get committed? When the actual rate that we get, I mean, I'm sure these are estimates, so they're in a bound. So when does that commitment take place? At what point?
At the day of pricing.
The day of pricing?
Yeah,
And that would be in February.
in the February, I believe, February, yeah.
So
And you
if,
would authorize pricing at the February meeting,
Yeah,
is what you're proposing.
right, but if they sort of wanna wait and see, then,
so if you did this preliminary work, whatever that is, would it throw you a big curveball if, we weren't in any more certainty a month from now than we are today, and we wanted to put it another month or so down the road?
it would be challenging if you said, kind of do a soft start right now, and then in February you said go. I wouldn't be able to price at the end of February, because I will need to engage with the ratings agencies. I wouldn't wanna engage them formally because they do charge a fee, that sort of thing, and so, when you say go, I would probably need 4 to 6 weeks.
And if we say go, we need to mean go.
Right, unless you wanna incur fees that you wanna be on the hook for without having.
So if we said a soft start, is that what you said? If we said that tonight, and then gave the go in February, then it would take 4 to 6 weeks to do that. I would just to the members, I have noticed, I've been watching this a very long time. And toward the end of the year, the very beginning of the year, maybe not as long as you've been doing it and not as professional, but the pricing is a supply-demand issue. If there's too much supply, then the price goes down, which drives the interest rates up.
Correct.
And that historically does happen in the fourth quarter and early January. It happened in the last couple of years. That's why we actually ended up paying some of the highest rates of the year on the bonds we did sell. It appears to be happening this year, just like it normally does. And you wait 3, 4, 5, 6 months down the road, and typically that supply of issuance goes down, and therefore your rate goes down at that point. So, that's where I'm coming from on this.
I'm not an expert at this at all, but I do know, the one thing that I've noticed through the years and hear a lot about is, for right now in the market, we are oversold in the market, I believe. So that means the rates, the stock market is likely to rise in the early spring, which means that the bond market is going to go down. So the rates could come down based on the fact that we're oversold in the market.
I will say RBC is expecting a slight correction in municipal rates from where we are today. But it's, again, these things are incredibly challenging to predict.
If we knew the market, we would know. what
Yeah,
to
then we would
expect.
price it perfectly,
Any other questions, board?
What are the fees that would be incurred if they said go and then tap the brakes in February for another 30 or 60 days wait?
Well, I'm trying to, the ratings agencies, you don't really pay them until the bonds sell. But you hate to string along, third parties and make them do work that they're not gonna be, that's not gonna be, come to fruition. I wouldn't allow any fee to be technically incurred until the board is officially ready to move forward.
I think we're all interested.
Sure. Why don't I can
Whatever a
come back in
soft start
February.
consists of,
We could start putting together an offering document, that's something sort of low-hanging fruit on our end, just so we're sort of ready to go. When you do say go, and I can come back in February and provide an update, and you guys can sort of sleep on it. I know this is the first you're hearing of it, so it's hard to make a decision right on the spot.
Do you have some kind of handy-dandy formula you could send the board members that would essentially tie this table into what rates are doing?
So you can monitor it yourself?
Yeah, you want-
Then
yeah.
what is my value add?
Or just send us that.
I can send you
Yeah.
some markets that, we get daily market information and all that, so I'm happy to share that.
You could send them a 6-year MMP.
the average
Sure.
life is 6 years. And so just send them a graph that shows them what's going on with the 6-year amendment.
Sure. Okay, I think our board agrees to a soft start, and then we'll put this back on the agenda in February.
Sounds good, thank you very much.
Sound good, board?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you for coming and for all the information. Okay, next up is agenda item number 8, the general manager report.
Yeah, I would ask Ms. Amber Hassan of Soul, our program manager, to report to the water supply and conversion status.
Sure. Thank you, good evening all. If you could click to the next
Sorry.
slide with the graphics. So the first graphic that's going to pop up is the one that you all see every month, which is the monthly conversion. It'll show you, as soon as we get clicked, it's going to show you the conversion, the percentage conversion for November, which we're still finalizing the numbers on, but I've got a preliminary conversion number in there for you. And
We're waiting for a slide.
we are. I can hold my computer up if you'd like. I've got the slide on here.
Amber, just go with that.
Okay, so I'm just gonna wing it for you all. So the one graph that you all see every month, and this is a very similar graph that would be in the presentation if you could see. So for the month of November, as far as surface water delivered, we were hovering at 32 MGD, and if you look at November of last year, was at 27 MGD, so we were able to deliver significantly more water than last year. Percent conversion, and now keep in mind that's a factor of how dry is it, how warm is it, how much are people still watering. There's a lot of things that go into that, but it is still good to see last year to this year. So percent conversion for the month of November is at 33%. Now that did go down from percent conversion for September and October, but to be expected, people are watering less. As they water their yards less, they're using less water. And so that is one of the things that's happening. For the month of December, so when we put this together, the month isn't quite over yet, so we did this before the end of, I think would have been done probably around Christmas time. So we were at 24 MGD. Carlson probably knows the number even better of what we ended up at for the month of December, but we'll have that updated for you all, and that's right in line with what you were at for last year. So if I were doing a trend and comparing this to previous years, your month of November came in on percent conversion similar to what it's come into in the past in total percent. So you had a really strong summer. Were able to get a lot of people surface water over the summer while they were watering a lot more. Total percent conversion, we're still hovering in it near to what we were for the month of November. And then I guess next month then I'll present to you all, we have taken some time on the over conversion analysis. We have updated and refreshed it. And one of the things that we're going to be presenting with it is showing you essentially, we can't predict what the markets are gonna do. We also can't predict what's gonna happen with the weather and with water demands. We could, we'd be in a very different business making a lot of money in Vegas or something. But, so we've got, in terms of the water demands, we've got over conversion scenarios that we'll present at next month's board meeting with the new graphics that will show you what is the range that we might expect to see. And if we see average demands happening over time, what might that do to our over conversion credit balance? And then what happens if we have much higher demands that happen? Let's say there's an extended multi-year drought that happens. Let's make sure that we're not tracking along, much like how on the hurricane tracker, you have a cone of uncertainty as you're looking farther out. It's the same concept that we're bringing here, is it will be a banded cone for you all so that you can see risk profile then, that you've got, here's the what might be the more optimistic outlook, here's if you want to be looking at worst case scenario, if you have a multi-year prolonged drought, what your over conversion credit balance might look like. So I'll present that at next month's board meeting. Yes, sir.
Can we get that perhaps a few days before the meeting? So we can-
Absolutely.
Okay, that'd be great.
How are we doing with meeting the 2025 deadline?
So, meeting the 2025 deadline, the strategy always was that you were not going to be able to hit the 2025 deadline when the day that it's due, which is your next permit renewal next year, is when the number goes into effect. So you purposefully were over converting and building up that bank to then under
So
convert.
that's January 1st?
It's actually when your permit renews, and your permit renews on December 1st. So you actually have the benefit of 11 months of the year to accrue more credits, and we have factored that into all of your numbers. The rule is whenever your permit gets renewed, and ours just happens to be November, which is very fortuitous for us, so. So as of December 1st is when you will then, starting December 1st until November of the following year then, is essentially permit year number 1, where you'll have to be at the next conversion milestone. So between now, if right now, don't hold me to this number, I'm not done with your reconciliation yet, but I think you're gonna end up probably in the, let's say, 32 to 34% converted for this year, that you will actually have some credits that you are gonna gain, but I'm still reconciling all your numbers, and we changed out AMI meters, and I'm reconciling all of those, so give me time on all of that. But you are going to accrue some credits then, and you'll continue down the same pattern, bringing on more months as some of the projects keep getting done. So you will gain some more credits between now and November. So then starting in December 1st, you will have from December 1st until the end of the permit year, the next November, for you to then report over that year what was your percent conversion. So that's really when November of 2026 is really when, at that point in time, you better have converted that whole year. And so your strategy was that you were going to under-convert, that you were never gonna hit that date. You're still starting projects right now that apply to your 2025 system. But that was a deliberate choice to try to keep rates as low as possible for as long as possible. And so you've got your projects then that, as those are being brought online, that is what that curve, that analysis is, where we're showing each month that yellow line. And I'll bring you one that has it starts in one line and branches out like a cone of uncertainty on the hurricanes. That's what you'll see for next month, and I'll get that to you in advance. So if your average growth holds out, if weather holds out consistent with where you're at right now, if we don't have a supply chain interruption that shuts down the port for 6 months, so long as you've got those kinds of ifs that have happened, you're on track to have enough credits to carry you through till when you have your system fully converted. If you have significant growth, if you have a multi-year prolonged drought, you do risk running out of credits before you have your system online.
So the 2025 conversion deadline
Yes.
is not November next year, it's basically, we have another whole year after that.
It will come to fruition at the end of that year. Really, it starts on December 1st is when you start being regulated. So not December 1st as in this past one, this coming up December 1st is when you have to start. So that day, everybody in the authority uses 100 MGD, you better be at your 60 MGD. And if not, you're gonna have to use credits.
So okay, by December.
By December, but you're not gonna be called to task for it until the end of the permit year. So really, that's at the end of the permit year when we'll be monitoring it, but at the end of the permit year is when you will then be figuring out, okay, we had planned on paying this many credits, we actually need to pay this many credits instead because we had more water usage than what we expected. Or it was a wet year and we had less water usage than expected, so we only had to use this many credits. And we figure that out at the end of your permit year.
So we need to be 60% converted by next December.
Yes.
And where are we at now?
In the low 30s. So last month was 33. Over the summer, you were up between 30, around 37%.
connected, there's some more muds.
Yes.
And does the goalpost keep moving? Like where were we a couple of years ago? Does that goalpost keep moving?
It does to an extent that you have to plan in advance for growth and development because you're regulated to your total boundaries. So if a mud, let's say, the mud that I'm in up on the northern end, mud 386, decides that we're gonna go and put in some apartment complexes, along that we're not currently in their plan, and they decide to add some apartment complexes in, well, the authority, with having that mud as part of the GRP, does have to account for that growth. And so it does become a moving target to an extent.
That's not fair, you know. Is that in the contract or the agreement? So if every mud gets 2 new apartments, how can we quickly, meet the
Well,
deadline?
The majority of the change will result from we have removed supply restriction from the city. And that will help us the most. Because over the past years, we were not able to supply surface water to meet the demand. Because we simply, the city limited us to 32 or 31 million gallons a day during our peak days. And starting April this year, we actually now can take whatever we want. We have purchased 51 MGD, so if we can get 51 from the city to meet the demand, our conversion percentage will increase significantly.
Okay.
Amber, you said one thing a while ago, I may have heard you wrong, I think I understand the math, but I'd like to have you clarify. You said a drought actually hurts us on the overconversion credits?
So it depends. So to June's point, if you have an not unlimited supply, but you have a lot more supply available, so your existing system can put out a lot more water. So in a drought, people are gonna water their lawns a lot more. Now you may get to a point of drought contingency plan and restrictions that are going on that may change things, but historically droughts are when you're using your peak water usage. So if you're looking at drought conditions, that is a higher water demand in the whole entire area. And so you actually are held to the moving target comment earlier, you're held to the standard of here is the entire area that you have to account for. So if the folks who are out on well water in their mud are pumping more water to irrigate, they're also bumping up their usage. And there's only so much more that you can get out of your existing system. So there does come a point where the extra usage all around outpaces what you're capable of pushing out in your system.
So the bottom line is, back to what Ron said, is we need to hook up more muds.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, we have the supply now, we just don't have the distribution.
Yes. Yes. Getting the folks on and the curves that we've built and that are in the graphics that you all will see are based off of here's your current CIP with all the projects that we've included. We're actually doing some long-term planning that I had mentioned a couple meetings ago, looking at long-term, what do you need to do for the future conversion goals, but in that we're also gonna look at, are there any more low-hanging fruit that are still left? That there's a mud that's nearby, what the existing system, that the cost of conversion is relatively cheap. Let's go ahead and add this mud in so we can try to help you all out. And we'll present that to you really next year's CIP. I'm hoping to present with that some options for, are there some additional things that you would like to consider to have ready to go should there be drought conditions and you need additional muds that you want to start accruing some more credits for those muds.
Were there supply chain issues or anything prior to COVID?
There's always things that happen in the marketplace, and even it can be limitations. So before COVID, one of the things that's really impacted just the general civil construction marketplace also was, prior to that, was Hurricane Harvey. So Hurricane Harvey You had a lot of funding opportunities, whether it was federal opportunities, whether it's state money, whether it is local money that folks went out and levied bonds to do civil construction projects to build, let's build a detention basin to help mitigate flooding. Well, some of those same contractors compete in the marketplace, so sometimes that can impact. You might have the same engineers designing those same projects around town, the same surveyors are surveying all of that around town. So there are situations like that that happen over time. Are they really frequent? I would say they're infrequent, but they do happen that every, let's say, 5 years, there's something that comes up that just is all of a sudden impacting our business in a certain direction.
So Harvey impacted us, COVID impacted us. So now we're like, we'll just say a couple years behind.
Let's hope.
Well, let's hope that's all.
No, let's work a couple years behind on the program. I thought you meant a couple years behind COVID. Let's hope we're a couple years behind that. Let's hope we're done. We have accounted for that in your calculations. We've accounted for where are you at today? Where do we think each project that's currently in design, each project that's in construction, we've baked all of that into your CIP and into the calculation for what does that cone of uncertainty look like. So we have been analyzing where are we at today and where do we think every single project that's going on right now realistically is going to end. Land acquisition takes time. How do we get those things done? All of that factored in.
Any other questions, board? Thank you, that was 8A, thank you, Amber. We're moving on to 8B.
Madam President and board members, the board authorized me to publish a RFQ for the authority's lobbyist. And we did that, and we received 3 submittals. And we formed a selection committee and interviewed all 3. And the selection committee recommended one firm to the board. The firm that we recommend will be Graydon, Strema, Lucille. And asking the board to consider to authorize me to negotiate and finalize the engagement.
So moved.
Thank you. Discussion, board?
Who was on the committee?
It was me and Mr. Mark Evans and Madam President. And Amber also sitting in the meeting, but she was not a voting member.
So, I'll ask the question then to President. So, in your opinion, why did this one stand out? Cause I don't have any input on any of this, I'm just asking some basic questions,
They stood out because they're the only ones that are gonna be bulldogs.
okay? Okay.
Did,
Yeah.
did we miss anybody? Were there any gotchas in this process?
I was told that there are a couple firms that submitted the proposals, but we never received it. For whatever reason, we cannot determine.
So how many submittals were not received?
At least 2 that I know of, or I was told.
Does that mean they think they submitted on time, or?
That I do not know, because I have tracked from our end that we use this platform that Harris County, City of Houston, Port of Houston, everybody use to civil cast to receive bids and or proposals. And there's no glitch on our side. And so I cannot say why those two firms believe they submitted and we did not receive.
So, in simple terms, how exhaustive was your investigation on these two firms not being responded to or acknowledged?
I have no way to determine what happened on their side. I can only determine that there is no glitch on our side.
We don't have a rate for this person, right? At this point?
Great, meaning.
And what are you
Oh,
gonna
what are they gonna
charge?
charge? Yes, we do.
What is that?
Just
It was-
this company?
It was reasonable.
Just 10,000 a month?
No, no,
Or
it was like that.
75, thank you.
Well,
I'm wondering, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Mr. Chang, I'm wondering if there were any conflicts with any of these, any issues have been brought up with any of these?
I'm not aware of any conflicts.
I don't know about conflicts, I mean, any issues like that with the three that we interviewed? They all just applied through SIPCAS?
Correct. I mean, they didn't have a problem with going to
No, no. I am not aware of any problem or conflict with any of the candidates.
Personally, I'd like to postpone this. I know there's a motion, but I'd like for somebody, the authority, to reach out to these other two parties and to find out exactly what they did on their side. Even if it's to find out if there's something, some other way we can communicate better the next time we have to reach out with an RFQ. But I wanna have a little bit more time to figure out what the heck happened, whether it's, you're confident it's not on our side. I'd like to know what they did on their side. So I would rather not just vote on this and confirm this without a little bit further investigation. That's my thought.
And I'm kind of up for maybe waiting a month, and maybe not for your reasons, maybe, but, I feel like we're just playing defense. Right now, we don't have any bills that we're trying to push or anything, and I just don't feel like we're in a big hurry to decide this month, but,
Thought we did. I
Well, I
thought
guess
there
we'll
was a
wait.
bill.
we'll wait and see.
Not that we're pushing, we're just defending.
Sir, Director Ramsey.
I was not part of the committee, but if we're interested in having any lobbyists at all, fully recognizing that one of the parties is against lobbying entirely. But, if we're gonna do that at all, we really need to do it sooner rather than later. The next 2 months is absolutely the most critical time of the legislature. If we wait even 2 weeks, we are not just shooting ourselves in the foot, we're shooting ourselves in both feet. And I question whether it would really be of any value to the authority and our ratepayers to even have a lobbyist if we're gonna push it back till the middle of the session. The way the Texas legislature works, you only get about 4 months. And if bills are not killed or pushed, especially in that first 2 months.
Well, the first 2 months, they don't do anything, do they? They don't vote on anything.
No, that's not accurate. There's a lot going on. It's just not stuff that is as public and votes and moving forward and committing into those sorts of things. That starts later, you're correct. But that doesn't mean the work's not going on behind the scenes. And that's where the lobbyist comes in. Now, I didn't pick this particular firm. I knew of, not closely, 2 of the 3 that applied. I have absolutely no problem with the choice of the committee. Absolutely no problem. And I think your description of them being bulldogs for us that's probably reasonably accurate.
And that's what my hesitation is, did any directors know about these ahead of time? That's why I'm a little hesitant, is I know the legislature doesn't vote on bills for 60 days, and I think we could give this over 30 days.
We lose if we do that, frankly. No matter which side of the bill we're on.
We effectively terminated our previous lobbyist back in November, even though he was still on contract for a year, or for another month. So, we let him go, and so I'm not sure by letting him go, that represents the urgency. We basically were in limbo. We've been in limbo for a couple of months now, or soon will be. And I don't see, based on that, there's no sense of rush.
Respectfully, and you don't understand what's going on in Austin.
Well, our last lobbyist told us we needed to start back in September, October. And this is, January, so we're already behind in my opinion. I think we ought to go ahead and, see how the guy does.
How long would we approve him for?
2 years?
Those kind of agreement usually is for the session and the year after, so 2 years.
2 year. Any other discussion, board, before we take a vote? Oh, Director Ramsey?
Yeah, is it possible, I hope, maybe this is directed at Andy or Jim, that we could have a bit of an easier, dissolution of the contract clause in this one than we have in this one? Pending some kind of review post-session or something, I'm just shooting from the hip, but.
Has anybody asked this candidate about other, like you did with our previous lobbyist, about things that they've lobbied for on behalf of themselves? You seem to be pretty picky about that on the last one. So I'm wondering if that question was ever asked.
I don't believe the selection committee asked specifically what issue they lobbied. We did look at their clients list, and we did not see any conflict in interest that, to us. To respond to Director Ramsey's question, I think that can be negotiated. But I will say that usually those fee is going to be spread out between the legislative year in session and the year after, because if you use them for 1 year and you terminate them at the year end, then the fee may be different.
But he's already quoting, even though he may not have asked for it, he's already quoting substantially.
No, we actually
less.
asked for it.
Oh, okay, so that's already substantially less than what we were paying?
Not substantial,
I
but
wouldn't
it
say
was
substantial.
very reasonable.
It was reasonable, yeah.
7,500 versus
Mhm.
11 or 12?
Well, it was 10,
It was
it was
10.
like 10,
10,
10 8 or
okay.
10 something.
Whatever it was.
Any other questions, board? We have a motion on the table, to approve the selection committee's recommendations. All in favor say aye.
I,
Any opposed say no.
No.
Any abstentions? I abstain. Okay, motion passes. Very good, 3-1 to win.
Next agenda item is the request for board to approve engagement of financial advisor. We have engaged a financial advisor 2 years, a year ago.
Sorry, June,
Yes,
this says auditor.
I'm sorry. Should it be auditor? Yeah, I don't know why.
Well, it was a pretty big distinction made.
It is,
So,
it is.
uh,
And I hope I did say auditor instead of financial advisor. Did I say financial advisor?
Yeah, advisor, that's why he's correct.
I apologize for reading off. Okay, my apologies, especially to John, that wasn't
And the
intended.
slide's wrong too. Sorry, dude. You read it off the slide, it's the.
Yeah. So it should be read financial auditor. So we had a auditor last year, and at the end of the audit, we have our accounting firm to check the work, and we find some errors. And also the audit report was not done to the very last minute, and therefore we feel the need to publish another RFQ, and that's what we did. And we have three firms also responded, and we have a selection committee. We interviewed the two of them because the third one was the one that we used, so there's no need to interview them. And we selected out of the three candidates, a firm. Name of the firm is Petito Braun Hill LLP, and we would like to recommend that firm to be our auditor for fiscal year 2024.
Who was on the committee?
It was me and Cindy and
I
you
wouldn't have-
were supposed to be, but you were absent. And
Well,
you were sick, so.
I was sick or
Yeah,
something,
It
or-
was excused absent. And Amber.
I might have been committed out, I don't remember.
That when I was out of town that day.
So just two of us, okay.
So and they are replacing what firm?
They are replacing Mitch Fontaine.
is that farm from Beaumont or Orange or somewhere?
Yes, that's correct.
This isn't the one that we used for
Last year.
20 years.
No.
McCall,
No.
The accounting firm is.
accountant, thank you,
Yeah.
okay.
On the graph.
McGrath is the one we used for 20 years. And they were replaced by Mitch Fontaine last year.
So do you know how much
That was
these,
my question, sorry, yeah.
do
So
you know how
these
much?
guys are not related to the one that was 20 years?
No. None of those three are related to each
Okay,
other.
so can you give us, same question as on the previous discussion, can you give us just a brief, really brief, of why these guys came out ahead?
Well, of the two firm that we interviewed, this firm clearly has demonstrated their experience in auditing our kind of agency. And they also demonstrated that they have willingness to come in here in person. Because they stated they use the old-fashioned way, so that's why we like that. Sandy, do you have anything else to add?
And they were very professional, and yeah, the experience, was, impressive, especially the principal that we were talking to, and with the firm for like 35 years. Very experienced.
Have they completed the conflict of interest policy?
Not yet, they not complete those until we decide to
Okay.
engage.
Do you know how much they're gonna cost?
Yes, their fee quote is less than 70,000.
Okay. Any other questions, board?
Where are they located out of?
Waco?
Waco.
Anything else? All in favor, or do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make the motion.
Okay. No other discussion, all in favor of approving the engaging of this particular financial auditor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Next is agenda item number 9, operations status report. Mr. Carlton McDevitt.
Good evening. This last month has been pretty uneventful, if a little complicated by the holidays, as it usually is. We have continued support from the city of Houston and our district operators as we normally do, so. It was pretty boring. We tried to stay awake most of the time. But, it was uneventful. Do y'all have any questions about an uneventful report? Yes, sir.
Hi, actually, I was wondering if you could give us an update. What's been about 5 or 6 months ago, we started working on the SCADA, I guess, where we're setting up all the meters automatically to be read. How's that progress coming along?
That will be Amber rather than.
Okay, wrong party, okay.
Little as you know, you're getting me back. Sure, so the AMI conversion, you have a contractor that is just about complete with all of that.
Okay.
So the goal was, a little over 400 wells are getting the automated smart meters, and, they should be completed, I would say within the next month, 2 months, they should be done. We are in the process of doing all of the auditing of how did that conversion go, what happened from the usage reporting perspective to make sure we didn't lose anything in that process. That's why some of my numbers have an asterisk on them, because we're doing that audit right now. It's not the best time of year to change out the meters right at the end of your permit cycle, but that's okay. We're making it happen.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for anybody else?
Thank you, Carlton.
Next is agenda item number 10, report from the Director of Planning and Governmental Affairs, and receive the board's directions on House Bill 1532 and 1643.
Thank you, Madam President, board members. It's, Carlton's always a hard act to follow, but I'll try. Some of what he said, I think, would apply to what's going on in the legislative session. But just kind of briefly, because we do have a couple of bills here that we do want to talk about a little bit. Next Tuesday is when the session starts, and as everyone knows, all the focus right now is on the speaker's race. I think you can just replace Dave Phelan's name with Dustin Burrow's name. So they're still playing out about the same scenario, so, you know, the speaker probably will be one of those two, or it might be a third party. We'll just have to see, but we should know fairly soon.
They haven't chosen a speaker yet?
No,
Nope, next week from Tuesday.
no, and it's inter-party conflicts going on there, so. But they will eventually, so certainly by the time we meet next in February.
Because the Republican caucus didn't have as, they only had 53 votes and they needed.
They need,
57, 58.
yeah, it was 60%. I'm talking about the Republican caucus, yeah.
76 is the number, though.
70,
That's the
76,
big
that's-
number, that's what somebody's gonna have to get to 76. There's 88 Republicans and 62 Democrats, so, as they say, do the math on that. So, but, despite the fact the legislature hasn't started, we do have a couple of bills that have been filed, and the board needs to consider those, and those are House Bill 1532, and House Bill 1532 is the Lake Houston Dredging and Maintenance District, filed by Cunningham, basically the same bill that was filed in the 2023 session, and a similar bill that was filed in the 2025, in the 2021 session, it was House Bill 25. This bill, just kind of some key points, it creates, as I said, it creates the Lake Houston Dredging and Maintenance District. It provides for the district to conduct dredging and maintenance operations in Lake Houston, and I would say that both of these bills are behind tab 6 in your packet. Provides for an appointed board of directors. The district may form voluntary interlocal agreements with political subdivisions, corporate entities, or other persons to perform dredging and maintenance operations in areas on Lake Houston and its tributaries. It authorizes the district to issue revenue bonds, but it prohibits the district from imposing a tax or charging a fee. The district must obtain approval from the City of Houston Public Works and Engineering Department before performing dredging and maintenance operation in Lake Houston. So those are just some of the key points of the bill. We did oppose, when I say we, the authority has opposed this bill in the 2 previous sessions. And I think probably, when you look at it, there's a lot of uncertainties, but certainly when you just look at a couple of points, it has to raise a question. And one is that it authorizes the district to issue revenue bonds, but it prohibits the district from imposing a tax or charging a fee.
So where do they get the revenue?
There you go, that's the question.
Also,
Yeah, and just my local government experience as a county judge, I mean, those are kind of the ones you really get concerned about, okay, where's the money gonna come from, particularly when you authorize the issuance of revenue bonds.
who gets to appoint
It's
the
in,
directors?
it's in the bill,
The city and the mayor.
city, the county, 3 directors appointed by the Commissioners Court, 3 appointed by the City Council of Houston, 1 director appointed jointly by the county judge and the mayor. That would be the board, with 7 directors. And that's specified in the bill, so it's specific.
Well, it's not that they're specific on that.
Well, we've been against this in the past. This is just gonna cost our constituents money,
Well,
potentially.
potential.
It could be another taxing authority. Potentially.
Well, I think, just, philosophically, you look at a bill as a governmental entity, if you have some uncertainties, you start from a position of opposing the bill. Until you get clarification, okay, how are you gonna pay for revenue bonds if you can't impose a tax or?
Previously, the similar bill contained the language that the district could charge a fee to any water users of Lake Houston by contract. Since we have contract with City of Houston, we are concerned that they can charge that and then city will pass that to the assault. And that was our reason to oppose that in the past. And my understanding is this time the bill is very similar language or even identical language from the last time.
From the 2023 version in the last session, the interlocal agreements were felt to be the avenue that,
To charge a fee.
charge the fee to pass it.
Do we know under which agreement the city might want to pass the charges on us under the water agreement?
Water supply contract that defines us as a water user.
Director Ramsey?
Yeah, that may have just partially answered my question. I'm looking at, if this bill had never been proposed and does not pass, who pays for dredging Lake Conroe if it becomes urgent?
Like Houston.
I mean, Lake Houston. I mean, is the city of Houston on the hook to do that, and we would share that cost under some existing contract, or?
No, not if the city of Houston can demonstrate whatever the cost they incurred is directly related to water supply.
But what other reason would there be that they'd want to dredge Lake Houston? Well,
The official reason given by the legislator who introduced the bill was to control the flood. So it's a stormwater management measure, which,
So are they going to let it drain throughout the year and it'll be?
Exactly.
I mean,
Really do
the
that.
only reason I can see to dredge Lake Houston would be to guarantee the surface water supply
it does
in
not.
term of a drought. And maybe it doesn't even do that,
It
but that's the
doesn't do
only
that.
reason I can think to even do it.
Yeah, it doesn't do that because the intake structure elevation doesn't change. So if you get the lake deeper, you just increase the water amount in the lake. You didn't get more water out of the lake.
So we'd have to drop our intake if we were to have a bad drought and Lake Houston got low, we'd have to drop our intake.
Yes.
Okay, back to my question. If Lake Houston silted up right now, who would be responsible and would make the decision to pull the trigger on dredging? Who would pay for it?
City of Houston is the owner of the lake,
Yeah.
so of course they would make the decision. But if they are going to transfer the cost to the authority, they have to have a valid reason.
Okay.
But one of the reasons that the water authority, that this water authority was created was because in the groundwater reduction plan, we were gonna be subject to the city setting the water rates for when we would get water from the northeast plant. The city was gonna decide what they were gonna charge us, city council, and we had no voice. Am I on point?
Yes,
So,
No, actually, that's not correct. We have a contract.
no, not now.
Oh,
Before the water authority was.
Oh.
Back in '99.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Misunderstood you, yeah.
So, the water authority was formed so that this community would have a voice in the rates that they were gonna be paying for this new surface water. And this entity, it sounds like it's the same old thing. We're getting, all of the board members are being picked by the city and the county. We get, if it's 3 members from the county and there's 4 commissioners, then each of them, we probably get a sliver of one of those votes from our commissioner up here. Maybe. So even if it's just on the representation and who's gonna be setting the rates, this sounds like 20 years ago.
Yeah, it sounds like Zion's district all over again.
Well, I'm not saying subsidence district, but you
But
might have a
still,
point.
All appointed from the city and the
Well,
county.
okay, that's a fair point. But I was talking about back in, before the authority was created, and what were we gonna do? Who was gonna pay for this? Who's gonna set the rates? And that's the same questions I'm having with this entity, is who's setting the rates? It's not gonna be an entity within the water authority. We're gonna pay what they tell us we're gonna pay.
it's interesting that in this bill, it says they cannot charge a rate or a fee. So they have to get money from the rainy day fund or grants from, somewhere, which goes back to the question, where do they get the revenue from, to pay off their bonds? I don't see a sustainable
Right.
to get this in place.
Mark said.
And then the
come up
next
with roads.
legislature comes in, and we're gonna tweak the bill. That's what I'm afraid of.
That's like the Cyrus Creek Drainage Improvement District, that's what their plan is.
So what we're looking for tonight, we do have a lobbyist on board now, so do we wanna give our lobbyists some direction on this bill?
I think we do.
Yeah, I would agree that we do.
Oppose it?
So,
Okay.
do we need to pass
Or
a
do we need to have a
resolution?
resolution,
Well, I
or,
think ultimately, yeah, we should, you know, obviously, we don't have one drafted tonight, but.
And we probably want them to advise us on what their feelers or contacts are telling them.
Well, we may not need a resolution tonight, I do think we need a board vote.
Yeah.
As a board decision to instruct Mr. Evans to work with our lobbyist to oppose this bill, if that is board intention.
So the board needs to vote to oppose the bill.
Yeah.
That's the vote.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I can take that board directive, and then I can pass that on to our lobbyists, because
So who is Mr. Cunningham? Who is
He's
he?
a state rep.
I know, where is he from?
Kingwood,
He replaced Stan Huberty.
Kingwood Humboldt,
he took Dan Huberty's seat.
yes. And took the ball from Huberty and ran with it.
Okay.
That's my
Yeah,
understanding.
they passed the bill
Director
to-
Ramsey?
to represent. Yeah, I'm wondering if this might, I mean, I don't like this bill, okay, I wanna make that clear. But for all the reasons we've all expressed here. But neither do I think that this is necessarily something that we are tasked with putting our nose into. And I don't think it's worth, perhaps ticking off Mr. Cunningham with. I mean, this has got a very long ways to go. I think this might be something we could get some advice from our new lobbyist and see just what the best way to handle it is. This may be one of those bills that from the get-go has zero chance of passing. And that all we really do by taking a stand on it is make enemies and no friends. And
That has been the case in the past, that the board give government affairs director a direction.
yeah, and I meant Mark
He,
too.
yeah,
not-
he will work with the lobbyist, and the lobbyist will work with him and say how hard you want me to push. So all we need is a position from the board, and then leave everything else for him to handle that.
Two years ago, we risked ticking off Representative Huberty by opposing this. It's not much different. I don't see why we need to pull back. Let's just resist.
So do I hear a motion to oppose this House Bill 1532?
Motion.
Any other discussion? To your point, Director Ramsey, I don't think we're ticking off this representative. I think a lot of reps put through a lot of bills, and I think they're the ones that took us off, just generally speaking. But when they don't pass our legislative priorities. So we have a motion on the table. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? Director Ramsey abstains? Okay. We are opposing this bill, thank you. Next.
The next bill is House Bill 1643, Dr. Oliverson. This is a similar bill to 3820 last session. This bill would remove the authority and the property located in the territory of the authority from subsidence districts regulatory authority.
Where does it say that in the bill?
That would
I
be.
tried to read that bill and I have trouble reading stuff that a lawyer wrote together.
Well, that's why you get faced with unintended consequences, but it's in 8801-007 right here. Does not, or this chapter does not apply to the North Harris County Regional Water Authority and property located
That gets us out of the society, just that one paragraph.
Yes, well, this bill does, it would appear, and there's other things that would apply too. That's the bill in the straightforward way.
I didn't like it 2 years ago, and I don't like it now. Yeah, I get it, but to just say, we're done, we wanna, there's too many other consequences of just pulling ourselves out. If one big one that comes to mind is we've got all these bonds, and the fact that we're under the subsidence district allows us to charge pumpage fees to pay for the bonds. Now, if all of a sudden we're removed, what authority do we have to actually charge pumpage fees? Now, that's just from a layman, but to me, that's like a single, it's like big. And then others would be, we've got all these relationships within the state around water, all sorts of different entities. And then we got TWDB. There's all sorts of iterations that you just cannot pluck this thing up from the roots and expect life to go on as normal. That's, and, you know, I know that Director Rowell has been trying to nurse, should I say, relationships, okay, fine. Relationships with the subsidence district. We do have, I think, a legitimate request to see if we can push back the timing just because of financial pressures on the community, et cetera. But this is, it's way too drastic. The motivation may be laudable, but the method, I think, is horrible. That's more like 5 cents, but okay.
Director Ramsey.
I don't wanna say much about this, but to Director Fessler's point, on pumpage fees, nothing would be affected at all. At least when this bill was put together 2 years ago, and when I skimmed it, when I heard from Andy that it had been refiled, as Representative Alderson had repeated what he said he was planning on doing, and I certainly didn't object to that. There's nothing in this that would affect how we operate other than 2 things. It lets us make the decisions on the absolute best way to serve our ratepayers and to consider new technologies, new financing strategies, whatever it may be, to best provide the most reliable, highest quality water to North Harris County. It's that simple. Right now, we literally have a Desert Eagle pointed at our head if we don't do what Harris Galveston wants us to do. And I applaud Ms. Rowell's efforts, but we're not going to get flexibility from Harris Galveston by trying to be nice to them. That's never gonna happen. It's not gonna happen in my lifetime. It's probably not gonna happen in my grandkids' lifetime. We just had those over today, I had to think of that. It's not gonna happen. It's not in Harris Galveston's interest, be it power-wise, be it money-wise, be it answering to the city of Houston-wise, to cut us any slack whatsoever. The only thing that's gonna do that is pressure. And that's gonna come from ratepayers, or it's gonna come from us, or it's gonna come from the legislature. What we're headed for, make no bones about it. I mean, John's pointed this out several times. we are headed for $12, $13, $14, $15 a thousand water, even if we meet the guidelines, just on the debt incurred if we try to have to do it by 2035. This is not complicated. This is it's not even mathematics, it's arithmetic. And what this bill would do is put the future of nearly 800,000 residents and their water bill in our hands to best manage how our geology and our problems dictate, as opposed to having some unelected board that meets down toward Galveston trying to force us to do something to enhance whatever they want to enhance. I can't speak for Representative Alverson, but he clearly thinks this is one of the best solutions for the problem we find ourselves in. I'm not saying it's the best. I don't know what else is potentially gonna get filed. But this is a really good start, even if it doesn't quite pass this year. This is the ultimate solution in this case. It lets us, I mean, instead of having a one-size-fits-all, for example, on the entire North Harrison County area, it lets us address hotspots instead of having to treat everything as a one-size-fits-all, which, as you know, rarely fits anybody, certainly not everybody. Anyway, that's way more than I intended to say, but the same kind of comments too that I made for Representative Cunningham is that only more so here is Dr. Oliverson is one of our best advocates in the entire legislature. And we certainly would not want to go against something that he has filed, believing that this is one of the best alternatives to the high water prices we saw 3 years ago. He's a good guy.
I agree on that.
Well, I seem to remember, sorry, is it somebody else's turn? You should have a turn. It's your turn.
Director Ramsey, I'm curious, did you ask Dr. Oliverson to file the bill, or did he just do it on his own?
I met with him 2, 3, 4 months ago.
And y'all talked about the bill?
We talked about a number of things.
Okay. Well, I agree with you. Dr. Oliverson is one of our best advocates. I think highly of him. You said you think this is the ultimate solution. I think
It's one of the better solutions. Maybe I misspoke if I said actually.
Okay.
No, I think you said it right.
Well, I wrote down what you said. I wrote down it's the ultimate solution. I could have wrote it wrong, but I think the ultimate solution is if we get someone else to pay for this and not the constituents. That is the ultimate.
Well, I agree, that's legitimate too, but I don't wanna waste taxpayer money on something we may not actually need to spend it on. But I agree, that would be the second ultimate solution.
I think it's the first, so let,
Well,
you know.
I like that too.
Well, so my question would be, who's this other party that's gonna pay for this?
Oh, you mean to Melissa's
To
point?
Melissa's point, who's the other party? We'll get somebody else to pay for it, who's gonna pay for it? Who's not the taxpayers of Texas?
Well,
If we get a new state coming in, Canada.
Yeah, we can try to count it before.
well, I'll tell you, I wasn't prepared to talk about this yet, but I spend a lot of time, I spend a lot of hours looking into this. I started thinking, we keep looking at the water wells and getting information from the Census District and how much water is being used and all that. But have you ever stopped to look at the oil and gas wells and the damage that they've done? And who's responsible for those wells? Who's in charge of those wells? And the state of Texas gets tax money off that well production, and it goes into the rainy day fund. And why isn't that money being used? Why aren't we going after the owners of the oil and gas wells? That's just
That-
another
that-
avenue.
if somebody can prove they're causing subsidence, and they may very well be,
I've
then I
spent
then I
some,
would say that which should be something that should be approached, but
so there you go, there's,
Requires them to go to education.
now, I talked to him, I briefly said that really quickly, I think, to Mr. Turco, and he says, no, it's the water wells. So I said, well, we disagree on that, but, I think that's another thing to be looking at, that I don't think we thought about that a couple years ago.
That's a
Madam
stretch.
President, if I could, I just wanted to make one statement, related to these two bills and any other bill during this session that the authority board is looking at whether or not they should take a position, what that position might be. While I won't speak for, Representative Lucio, any lobbyist, and certainly any good lobbyist, the first thing they're gonna wanna do is work with an author of a bill, get questions answered, see if there's a way to take a bill and fix that bill. Some bills you can fix, some bills you can't fix because they're just too straightforward. But certainly, I think in the question, Director Ramsey, about the Cunningham bill in particular, that's the one that, you start out with a position, well, right now, as it's drafted, we have to oppose it because we've got those questions about, y'all are gonna sell revenue bonds, but you can't, how are you gonna pay for them? So I just wanted to say that I know, while I'm not speaking for Representative Lucy, I'm sure that would be the first track he's gonna take.
And whether or not you have a spot on the board, if they do create it.
Excuse me?
And whether or not you have a place on the board, the ability to appoint
Yes.
someone to the board.
why is the largest water authority, probably in Texas, not have a seat on the board on the control of our water supply? That would be a good question.
A friend of mine did bring that up months ago, like, we should have, everyone from the different water authorities should have a seat on that board.
Yeah.
Yep.
Based on maybe per capita usage or something, but
Now, letting more go to Harris County Commissioners Court does not seem like a good idea to me, as a general rule.
so,
And this actually goes to this.
I could,
What's that?
I said, thank you, Madam President, that's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Director Fessler, and then I've got a few more things to say.
I remember the hubbub from 3820. And I remember that our previous lobbyist came back with, hey, you want to oppose 3820, what are you gonna do in the case of being removed? And there was a whole slew of questions, and to my knowledge, they never got answered. And so, I'm not comfortable with seeing this happen all over again, and us having to go through the same uproar that 3820 caused. I want a little bit more information before we support this. But I think we need to, at a minimum, come up with hey, we're concerned about this bill. You might maybe not hate it, but it's no bueno to me. Too many questions. And, where does, so Director Ramsey said that, hey, we'll just go on. Where does our authority to actually charge for water and pumpage fees and stuff come from? What legislation was that?
That's 1999.
Yeah,
So, if
They
that,
only created the authority.
if that mandate was removed, or rather, if our area is removed from that mandate requirement, don't think the authority has any legal authority to charge
That's my concern, that was my
fees
concern.
anymore.
Director Ramsey, if you're through.
Yeah, first of all, to Mark Evans' point, if in fact Kelly, this is a problem, it can be fixed, it's not too late to fix it. However, the bill does not take, it doesn't repeal 8888. It just repeals us being under Harris Galveston. Everything else that's authorized in 8888 stays in there. So we can still do pumpage fees, we can still charge for the delivered water, all of that kind of stuff under this bill.
Okay, well, that's a different opinion than the general manager just spoke. So that's,
We had a precedent in SJRA's case when the groundwater management rule was repealed from the Lone Star Groundwater District district. The customer of SJRA stopped taking surface water and want out of the contract. That's why they have so many lawsuits involved.
yes.
So I do think if you remove the authority's service area from the mandate, from the SGSD, then I don't think all the mud will continue to pay your fees because you no longer have that jurisdiction.
But June, it's not Harris Galveston that grants us the authority to charge. It's the legislature via 8888, and or what became 8888. And if that's a concern, the legislature, with the revised draft of this bill, can certainly fix that. Just like they did not provide funding for the unfunded mandate 50 years ago.
Yeah, I agree. You can fix any problem with a new bill.
Thank you.
Director Parker, if,
I have
Mr.
a-
Chang, are you?
I have a question for Ms. Randy. What is your legal opinion?
I would like to understand all of the ramifications of it, because we have different opinions from different sources. And I have not seen the questions that were raised last time that Mr. Evans stated.
I didn't say.
No, I said,
Oh, Kelly, Mr. Fester said that. Then I would like to see those and look at those, because I can see truth in both sides of this. I would like to recommend that we analyze it very briefly before you take a position on something that could, so greatly affect what we can or cannot do.
I'm good with that.
Director Ramsey?
Yeah, maybe this will clear up a little bit of confusion. And this is what I mean, to my knowledge, this has not been changed other than dates from 2 years ago. I mean, this was drafted by Ledge Council, et cetera. If you look on the first page, about a third of the way down, it's talking about 8801, not 8888. You see that?
8888 is mentioned in section 6.
I know, but 8801, this is the section that's the most operated, they all matter, but this is the one that I think is causing the confusion. What it's saying is the Harris Galveston creation portion, the 8801, does not apply to North Harris County. That's what where it says section 8801.007.
Which tab?
Tab 6.
Six. Past the blue, the line.
That 8801.0007, it's taking us out from it's what Turco referred to as a carve out. It carves us out of their district. That's not the traditional use of the word carve out, but that's the way he described it. The part down on 8888 that it's referring to, that's saying we don't have to listen to what the subsidence authority says. And the bill goes on to say we can do projects with them. We can continue to get science from them. We can work with them. It's just that we would have the sovereignty and the flexibility to do what's best for our ratepayers. If we had to go help Jersey Village in an accelerated fashion, we would have the ability to do that. We really don't right now. We've got to do things pretty much the way Harris Galveston has dictated us because of these,
The one size fits all.
because of the one size fits all. And the timings and the percentages. We don't have any science behind the timings. We don't have any science behind the percentages. And some of those questions have been asked now for 30 years. Yes, before the RWA was established. And we still don't have those answers. Well, enactment of this bill would let us get those answers and determine, we might not want to change anything we're doing. That's a possibility. But it would be these 5 members that would be making that decision and not 19 unelected members down in Galveston.
Director Ramsey,
I mean, you gotta read this bill to understand it, Kelly. It's very clear in what it does, and it does not gut the RWA.
Director Ramsey, if the North Harris County Regional Water Authority is the only one that supports this bill, and the other water authorities don't, and AWBD and TWDB, if they all are against the bill, how does that?
Respectfully, I have to do what is best for my ratepayers. And if we have to be the one vote standing to do what's best for our ratepayers, we owe it to our ratepayers to do that. That's exactly what the Lieutenant Governor said about 12 or 14 years ago when he first became a senator. And sure enough, he was outvoted 30-1 on those early votes, but he stuck with it.
Director Ramsey, I mean, and the whole board actually, I want to do what's best for my ratepayers, for all the ratepayers. I have several things to say, so hear me out. I did have a question on here, or a comment on my notes, that we do need legal analysis on this bill. So I guess that would come from you.
If I could interrupt there, if you go to 3820, was that the number? 2 years ago, there's already some legislative analysis out there from when it was filed 2 years ago.
Okay,
It's been done by attorneys.
okay, I'll look that up. The bill from 80th legislative session, it didn't get a hearing. Now, I did support this bill 2 years ago. We were elected, I was gung-ho, I thought, oh, this is a great move. And then I realized, well, it didn't get a hearing or anything, and all it did was burn a bridge with the subsidence district. Now, hear me out, okay? I think you get places by building relationships and not burning bridges. And I've burned bridges over my life, and you, I admit it, I've burned a couple of bridges. Hey, you don't have to say it like that. And all you can do is learn from that, grow from that, and you know, I do highly respect Dr. Tom Oliverson a lot. And I don't think this is disrespecting him. This is just about this particular bill. You know, I thought a good move on behalf of the Water Authority would be to rebuild the relationship with the subsidence district and try to make a move that way. And a month ago, we decided that our general manager, myself, Mr. Turco, and their chairman of the board, we're gonna go have lunch or have a meeting after the holidays, so that's gonna be coming up. I'd like the board to know this and see if y'all agree with me, that if you support this bill, if you're supporting this bill, it means you also support the Harris-Galveston Subsidence District letter. It means you also support us preparing to go to litigation with the Subsidence District, which
No
is.
one's talking about.
I think it is, we're saying, this bill, we wanna break away from the Subsidence District. The letter is about breaking away from this business district.
It is not.
It's about, it's gonna be about economic analysis,
It's
Yeah.
about
economic
pushing back.
impact.
It's about pushing
Pushing
back
back.
the deadline.
Well, you're
of
also
economics
preparing
and the science, yeah.
by our attorney engaging the hydrogeologist and our attorney engaging the economic impact advisor. You've taken that on because you're, for future possible litigation, right?
No, that is defensive, but you cannot have a dialogue with a regulatory agency unless you have something that supports what you're asking for, and that's all we're doing.
I would suggest we postpone until Andy has a chance to review it and give us the layman's opinion of what his legal put in layman's terms, so that we understand what the risks and the benefits of this are.
I'm okay with that.
Well, I was gonna let y'all know, I thought about one thing we could do is, and we won't, but is if that we ask Dr. Oliverson to withdraw the bill. But I guess if we're gonna wait, I would go with postponing this till next month.
So moved.
So, okay, any other
David-
discussion?
David already did.
You already moved to postpone to next month?
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no? Abstentions? Okay. I think that was unanimous. We're postponing. I think this is gonna take a while. It's almost 8 o'clock. If there's no objection, we're gonna take a 10-minute break. Welcome back for all those still here and still listening online. We are moving on to agenda item 11. Construction engineering updates, including update on the Northeast Water Purification Plant expansion project. And authorizing final acceptance of the work and approve the final contract payments pending TWDB acceptance and release of retainage for 3 projects.
Yes, Officer Minister.
Thank you.
There's not a whole lot changed since December meeting on new expansion. Phase 2A commissioning and testing was started back in December. Water was treated and samples were submitted to TCEQ for the approval. They still haven't the approval yet. So hence, we cannot have the acceptance testing performed because of that. So phase 2A was shut down just before the holidays. It still remains offline since we get the TCQ approval. Hopefully, sometime back in January, they will start back after they have the TCQ approval to basically start the acceptance testing within 15 days. So as of today, the phase 1, which is the expansion, was pumping about 45 plus MGD, as well as the existing was pumping 37 plus MGD.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, do we know why there's the delay in the approval?
Well, no, that's typical for TCQ to approve. That's about 60 to 90 days, very, very common.
Okay, so it may not, it's not really overdue yet.
Well, no,
Okay.
and that's not TCQ's priority either. Any other question on that?
I just got a real simple one. So
Yes, sir.
looking at number 6C, so that means, so I'm curious, how long when did we approve 6C, and so how many years has this taken? Just as a general timeframe.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Well,
When did we
we're still
approve?
on A, I think, Director Barker, right? Or have you talked about
Yeah,
B?
we are.
Oh, 6C1.
No, this is only up.
Yeah, we talked about that yet, so
Okay.
never mind.
Thinking ahead.
I'm thinking ahead, sorry.
So,
It's okay.
That's perfect segue to the next one.
okay, so the next one is, I'm going to cover all 3 of them at the same time. It's 11B, which is this agenda item is to authorize final acceptance of the work and approve the final payment pending TWDB acceptance and release the retainage for 3 projects, which is 6C1, 6C2, and 25A. 6C1 was awarded to Principal Services LLC, and 62 was Blazy Construction, and the 25A was Harper Brothers. All these three projects were completed in accordance with the approved plans and specifications. Contractors are requesting retainage be released and final payment be made for successful completion of the project. So the TWDB requirement is the authority board must grant authorization for final acceptance of the project prior to TWDB accepting the project. Once board approves the acceptance, the authority will submit closeout documents to the TWDB. So once TWDB accept the project as completing, then they will release the retainage and will make the final payment. So, the executive summary was submitted in the package for all three of them. And here we, the staff, are requesting the board authorize final acceptance of work and approve the final contract payment for all three projects, 61, 2, and 25A. Happy to answer the question.
So now I'll ask my question. So how long is it taken to do 61 and 62? I'm just curious how long these projects take.
61 was completed within 270 days, and 62 was completed 290 days.
Okay, so when did we approve the project? I guess I'm trying to get an idea from the time that we say go until the time we are finished, what that time frame
And
looks like.
NTP was done in July 23,
Okay.
and the substantial was done somewhere, yeah, March 24th?
Okay. All right, cool.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
A couple of questions. Do you know, and get back to me if you don't know off the top of your head, but do you know which of our bond issues paid for these, all three of them actually?
All three of them SWIFT funded.
Sorry?
All three of them was SWIFT funding.
I know, but which actual sell bonds? Which actually, I mean, they're done like every year, but
Yeah.
which years was actually done?
So 61 and 62 are one bond, the one that you closed on this past year, which TWDB calls 51004, the project number. They're both associated, so they lump all your projects together in one, so they don't look at them as, oh, project 61 came out at a certain time. So you've closed annually on the 51004 money, every year you've closed on it. So you probably closed on the money probably in 2020, notice receipt was 23, you probably closed on it in 22, is what I would say. Project 25A is off of a different set of loans. That's off of what TWDB calls it, Project 51009, for the second transmission line. So that's for all the big 84-inch pipe that came across by the Beltway that comes to the pump station. That's what all the 25 series are. And so that was a different loan, and the last time you closed on 51009, oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. Do you remember the last time you closed on it? It's been a while. I don't have the, I could find it, give me 5 minutes.
2021, maybe somewhere in that range.
Yeah, thank you.
It has to be,
It's been several years.
it has to be, Amber, it has to be before 2020.
Yeah, those were closed because, it was definitely a while ago that those all were closed.
It would be probably 2020.
2020 or 2019.
Okay, and then follow-up, not really related, but are all three of these, quote, just pipelines, or do these actually bring on any capacity?
Yeah, the two of them, 61 and 62 brings capacity on.
I mean, to the mud?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So that's distribution. It's
Yeah,
not-
the
yeah.
25 is a transmission line.
Okay.
Any other questions? We have a motion.
Motion.
Any other discussion on these? We approve them all together?
Yes, please.
Okay, so the motion is to authorize final acceptance of the work and approve the final contract payments.
Oh, wait.
Oh.
One other quick question
Yeah.
before we get into a vote.
Yeah.
What happens to the unspent contract amount?
Coming back to us.
Sorry?
Coming back to us.
Okay, but what do we do with it?
We are able to utilize it on other
Other
projects,
projects.
so TWBD allows us to then say, okay, we didn't use it on this project, we'll use it towards the next project, so then they might put us a little bit less money. If they've already given us the money and we didn't spend it all, then we just say, okay, we're gonna use that leftover towards this project. So that means we just get to take it and
So is that part of what you found when you analyzed everything back 3 months ago? or whatever
that's
that was?
part of it, but I did not account for all of that. I wanted to still be conservative, so sometimes we just don't know what might be hanging out there that we might need to use some of the money that's in there. Oh, we had to use the traffic control longer than what we thought, and so we needed some extra days for it, whatever. So I did not discount the projects. I used whatever the contract amount is in your budget analysis for the CIP. But that it would be additional savings that we then can, at the end of this year, project for next year, okay, we were able to reallocate money to other projects. So I did not factor in reallocating any of the funds.
Thank you.
So Kelly made the motion, yes? Okay. And I've already read the motion, so all in favor? Say aye. Aye. I think that's unanimous, so motion passes. Next up is agenda item number 12. Authority insurance policies in order adopting a policy and procedure regarding reimbursement of private defense costs. Do you wanna go first, Director Ramsey, or Mr.
No,
Johnson?
I wanna move if we handle this in executive session.
Why?
Because it deals with lawsuits and potential lawsuits.
This is just a policy.
We can discuss the policy itself and whether or not to have the policy or any change to the insurance in public. However, to the extent that there needs to be a discussion of some of the facts and threats that have led to this policy, that would be a proper thing to discuss in executive session.
Okay,
So we can discuss the policy.
So who's the referee? Are you gonna be the referee when we step over the line of?
Sure.
Okay.
Jeez. Walking fine line.
so I was, myself, and Director Graham were both beneficiaries, if I can say, of a similar process, I wouldn't say policy, 20-something years ago. When there was a criminal complaint filed against the four on the majority of the board. And I know that the board voted to, once everything was over and that complaint was no-billed, that the board voted to pay for attorney services to have our records expunged. It wasn't for our defense, it was for our records to be expunged because a criminal complaint is the same as having an arrest record, and I'm in the security information business, and that basically would have put me out of a job. But I don't remember ever having to go with a policy of is this just something new? I mean, what are the circumstances that have changed since 21 years ago?
Well, this would have been effective, in fact, 20 years ago, I did have clients that had policies like this. And it arose because there were, threats from maybe a developer or, somebody who opposed what you're doing or whatever to either file a lawsuit or criminal complaint. And one of the things I have noticed in the insurance policies that you currently carry, there is a disconnect between what the reimbursement policy there is and what you authority or, anything like that. So what I have recommended and discussed with June is getting additional commercial insurance that would have higher limits, because right now, the limit, I believe, is $10,000 under your current policy for any reimbursement for any legal expense. And, I was told by the other director who was involved with you years ago, back then, he indicated that he spent $9,000, which ultimately was reimbursed through insurance, but also there were additional costs for expungement and things like that. So your current insurance does not cover, if it's a $10,000 limit, if you lawyer up for any kind of defense that isn't already covered by your insurance, then you're looking at twice that probably at least. And so I have some districts that have adopted a policy similar to this. And if there is a situation where legal fees are expended by a director in their own defense, then as long as they're not convicted, because it would be against public policy to reimburse anyone for criminal defense if they're convicted. So what this does, it fills in the gaps between the limits of your insurance coverage and what the potential expense could be if you're exonerated by a no bill, acquittal, or statute of limitations expires, things like that. And so what it is to accomplish exactly what you experienced. And I did not see exoneration in here. I mean, expungement listed in here, but that is something that could easily be added if that's, has not been in the policies we have adopted in the past, but if that's something that would be appropriate, I think that would be would be a good thing to add. Purely if something happens, we don't know if something would happen, but if it does, then this would be in place to protect you or any other director who gets accused of something.
If something's already happened, will this cover it, or
Yes.
it will go retroactive?
No, because you haven't incurred the expense yet.
No, that's incorrect.
No,
No insured underwriter will write a policy to cover something already happened.
no, we're talking about this reimbursement policy. You're correct on the insurance would not cover any, if you don't have enough insurance and you want to go buy it and something has already happened, that's a pre-existing condition, and that would not be covered by insurance.
That's what we're talking about, isn't it?
No, we're talking about a reimbursement policy where the authority would use its funds to reimburse an acquitted innocent director for legal fees.
So it's
Yeah.
not an insurance policy.
This
It's
is
the
not,
authority.
we're talking about two different things.
Yes. Well, you're talking about $10,000. That's the insurance policy. And I don't know where you get that $10,000 from.
From the TWCA insurance policy.
I don't believe so.
That's it.
I will look. Okay.
What is the statute of limitations on this?
Generally, it's 4 years.
Huh?
4 years.
4 years? So if we adopt this policy, it would be 4 years if nothing happened. In 4 years, it'd be 4 years before he could be reimbursed, or he or she could be reimbursed then.
Well,
Under this
no,
policy.
no, as far as I know, nobody's lawyered up, nobody's incurred any expenses. And so if someone was charged or, a defendant tomorrow, this would apply. Your existing insurance policy would apply to any claims against the authority or directors civilly in their official capacities. And in case of a criminal issue, it would apply to the extent of a potential reimbursement if the person in the future is, acquitted or otherwise no billed or, is found not to be liable for the conduct that's alleged. So what this does is, let's say you were charged with, a violation of Open Meetings Act or anything else, then you would have to go hire a lawyer, and lawyers are approximately twice as expensive as they were many years ago. And so let's say you incurred a cost of, $25,000 or $30,000 to defend yourself, then, and you were ultimately no billed by a grand jury, not charged, charges were dropped by the DA, or acquitted after a trial, which would be more than the $25,000, then your existing insurance policy would reimburse you $10,000. Okay, now you're still out $15,000 or $20,000. Where do you get it? And as long as there's not a conviction and you're not guilty of anything, then many public entities agree in a policy such as this to reimburse a director, or it could be, an employee or whoever, whatever the cost for that defense is within the law, to the maximum extent allowed by law. And the amount allowed by law is whatever the cost is up, as long as they're not convicted. Because it's against public policy to reimburse anyone for being guilty of a crime.
Well, as I recall, I might be wrong, the insurance policy that we had at the time, 20 years ago, did not cover anything, the open meeting violation accusation that was made.
Right.
And we checked into it, and we couldn't get a policy to cover something like that. Now you're saying that we have a policy that covers $10,000?
Yes, you do. But only $10,000.
If it's the same policy that we had 20 years ago, it wouldn't cover this.
Well, and that's one reason why since then, because I was working with the authority at the time, since then I have recommended that clients not have this insurance because of that. And now I've recently found out that they will go out and purchase an additional commercial policy. That's more like all of the MUD's thing, to supplement that, to get a little bit more coverage. They still will not reimburse, they will not pay up front for criminal defense, but they will reimburse whatever the costs are up to greater limits. So my first recommendation is that you authorize your general manager to shop around and maybe from TWC or a commercial broker to see if you can find a similar policy with higher limits. And then a second stopgap is this indemnity policy that is, if they're not found criminally liable, then the authority would use some of its resources to reimburse whatever the legal costs are.
It might be better to self-insure, because there's so many exceptions to these type policies that chances of you getting money out of them are slim.
Well, and that's what this second the document that you have in front of you, that is essentially a self-insurance policy.
So, according to my recollection, I never had to pay anything towards a defense. Nobody ever asked me for $9,000, so I'm not sure how all that happened. I just remember that it was no build, and then we had to get the expungement. But the board voted on the funds to reimburse the expungement. Are you basically, so what this does is it basically sets that as a policy, and the board would not have to vote on it because it's policy to
Well,
get reimbursed.
It sets up an expectation that someone who is a defendant that proves that they're innocent or is never ultimately formally charged but has legal expenses would be able to, would have a policy that reimburses them for whatever their cost is.
I understand. So I'm just trying to
But you'd still
differentiate
have to
between
vote
what
on the
happened.
check. You'd still have to vote on the payment. You still have to vote on the payment.
I see no reason to adopt a policy, then we're gonna have to vote on
We
it
have to
anyway.
vote on it anyway. Why do we have a
Why
policy?
have it?
You
That's-
can't make expenditures without voting on it. That's just what the rules are. What this does is set up an expectation of someone who would be a potential,
So we could,
Defendant.
they could expect to have their
yes.
expenses reimbursed, and if the board votes no, then
And I
that's
think
gets
you're-
blown
I
out of the
think
water
I think the authority would be a defendant.
for going against their policy.
Right.
I got you. Okay, fair enough.
So this is two different things, right? You're wanting us to get commercial insurance, and also
Yes.
this is a
Right,
this is a
when I spoke with June about it, he said, well, I believe that I need the direction from the board to go acquire this extra insurance.
commercial insurance.
Commercial insurance. And I was told, a month or so ago, because I've been pursuing this a while, actually for
Have you?
another client.
Okay.
Not for you all, for another client. And, they ultimately told me that they did have commercial insurance available that they would get from someone other than the TWCA, risk pool, which is where your insurance is through. And I think that is a very clean and appropriate way to deal with that. For a couple of $1,000, you can increase your limits, I believe, for coverage for these types of things, not for any current incident that's known, but for the future. And then this policy would put certainty in the minds of any director who is putting him or herself out as a public servant, that if you did get pursued with some complaint that you have no control over, then you would agree to, the authority would have agreed to reimburse that person for the fees.
So I think, now that I've read this, or at least most of it, I remember that in my case, it was a very welcome, it was nice to have. And the board did vote to reimburse, and that was a unanimous vote, even though we were split 4-1 at that time. And I remember the fifth vote said, I wanna do this because if it ever happens to me, I wanna be reimbursed for my expenses as well. So, with the conditions, and again, it's all based on, no bill, acquittals, so we're not paying for anything for anybody that gets caught or convicted or fined or whatever. It's just this is a big entity. We're responsible for a lot of stuff as members of the board. And, we've already seen what can happen when the Northeast plant and the main contractor starts suing, and, we went over that in executive session about this, they're suing us for this, they're suing us for this, they're suing us, it can go crazy. So, I haven't read the whole thing yet, but in general, I support this.
Go ahead, and then, my turn.
Yeah, just to Kelly's point, do we need a formal resolution, assuming we pass this? Do we need a formal resolution to put the expungement part in?
Well, I would just amend this, except, we just need to add that to this, and that's fine. That's easy to do. And we can either do it with a motion today, tonight, or we can postpone it and do it next time, whatever you all like. I think it's more efficient if we, do it now.
Okay. About the insurance policy, this would be two different motions, wouldn't it? This is two different
That-
things?
That's up to you. I think that, it could very well,
So about the insurance policy, is this, can I hear from Mr. Chang? Is this something you can look into and get back with the board? Or do we need a motion before you start looking into this?
Well, I certainly need the board's directive before I go out, start shopping around for policy, because then I'll come back and you're gonna ask me, who told you to do that? I mean,
Okay.
I can't say, well, our attorney told me to do that.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I can't do that. That's what I told Andy when he
that's
told me.
exactly what he told me, yes.
And so, other thing is, this is a policy change.
Yes, it
Is
is.
this one of those things you needed
And
21 days
it is one of the
notice?
things that technically you would need 20 days, although you can waive that tonight
So my-
if you
so
want
my
to.
problem
I'm not
is-
saying you have to, or you want to, whatever you want to.
So I think this is two different motions. And regarding the policy change, this was thrown on at the last hour. I haven't had a chance to look at this. It's not urgent, correct? Cause this is just a,
Right, it's a preventative measure.
right, so it's not urgent today, it could wait. I don't like that it was thrown on at the last hour. I don't even know when it was requested or who requested it or if it was your idea.
I was out of town and I asked Zach, well, did you put that on the agenda? And he said, no. I said, well, it needs to be on the agenda.
Well, I don't even know when if it was submitted after the deadline or when.
Well, actually, I spoke with June about, a month ago? A few weeks ago, 3 weeks ago?
Not an agenda, no.
No, just about the insurance issue that we're talking about.
I'm talking about the policy change.
She's talking about policy.
Oh, the indented language.
This came in, what, Tuesday night or Wednesday or something?
I don't know, I was out of town, so.
This is a board policy, so we got the 21-day rule.
Yeah, unless
That's-
you waive it, that's right.
Right, but I feel very rushed on this. It's not urgent.
Okay, so let's not waive it, so.
That's fine with me.
And I think this is two different votes. We vote upon June looking into the insurance policy is one vote, and just the policy and whether we're gonna, first we have to vote on if we're going to suspend the 21-day rule or not, and then we can vote on the policy if we did suspend it. That's,
That's it.
21-day rule has never been followed since we adopted it. I think we need to. We have waived the 21-day rule every
I think
time.
we
I don't know.
voluntarily followed it a few times, but I don't know that it's stopped us from doing
well,
it.
Mr. Chang noticed in this policy that there's something that needs to be fixed, did you say, or?
The language? you mean?
Yeah, something about the language.
Yeah, the language is not clear. What if a settlement was reached? So there's no clear guilty or not guilty.
Well, if you reach a settlement where you agree that you committed a crime, I think you're not covered.
If I'm a defendant, I reach a settlement, I would disagree with that. I would say settlement, I mean, so many,
Settlement is
big
not admitting
business-
guilt,
Yeah,
right? Is that the-
yeah.
Yeah, if
just
you
a
don't
settlement.
admit guilt, you're done. I mean, yeah, it's covered. If it's a settlement.
You're just,
and-
but if he brings it up, I think it's valid to look
I
into
agree.
it.
I'm all in favor of.
Well, so I
settlement.
think there's
Okay,
changes
all
that
right.
be made.
So, I would like to at least move that we ask the general manager to investigate an insurance policy for members of the board.
Okay.
So
Any,
we'll get rid of the insurance thing first.
okay. Any other discussion about the insurance policy?
Is there, may I ask for
Yes,
clarification?
yes.
How much additional coverage should I shop around for?
Recommendation?
Right now it's 10,000, you said?
10,000,
And you
I
want me
have
to
seen
shop around for-
50,000, and I've seen one time larger. I don't know what is exactly commercially available. I think that there are probably limits based on how much you wanna pay for premium.
That's
So-
exactly why I'm asking
Yeah,
that
and
question.
that's what you're gonna find, that the premium is gonna be prohibitive the higher you go.
Exactly,
right,
yeah,
yeah.
that's why I want to know.
You're gonna be paying 10,000, 20,000 a year for a policy that,
Well, and that is the same decision that ultimately you make every year on whatever your insurance coverage is, or your general liability and things like that. And we've just settled into a sweet spot, I believe.
Okay, Director Rand, go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's exactly the question, and I guess we could bring, or, Mr. Chang could bring back options that y'all can choose from. And to the extent your liability exceeds whatever your coverage is, then this would kick in.
Director Ramsey?
Yeah, Ron, you're, at least used to be in the insurance business, right? Well, what does a typical homeowner umbrella liability policy have as limits, and what does that cost?
If you don't mind, let's kind of get into the weeds, I think.
Well, no.
I mean, I think if
It's
June, let June
Wait,
shop
wait,
around.
June's been asking, he wants to, I think we need to give June a little bit more than just shop around.
Thank you.
No,
Yeah, I need to know, am I shopping for another 10,000, or if I'm shopping for, Andy mentioned 50,000,
That's why my question, Ron, what are the typical umbrella?
well,
I think that's
the
different.
typical umbrella covers, your personal stuff, and not a business related, like this, but
Yeah.
it'd cover, like slander or any negligent acts that you commit, but that's on a personal basis, not in a business or board relationship type thing. There would be exclusions for this.
I think shop an additional
No,
10.
That's not what I'm asking. Just to June's question, how much are those policy limits typically?
I think it's
Starts
irrelevant.
at minimum of $1 million and goes to, in other words, I personally have like 3 million for myself, so there's probably, 300 a year.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
But we're
And-
not talking about general liability. The authority already carries
Right.
$10 million liability insurance policy. This 10,000 that Andy mentioned is specifically for legal expense. I haven't
It's-
read that,
well,
so I don't know
it's
where you're
called-
setting from.
It's called Directors and Officers Liability Insurance, or in short, D&O. And all the districts that here have that, and for civil actions, it really, the amounts that are, it's almost unlimited. But what we're talking about is criminal, and those have more restrictions on it, and
Do you have existing policy that you can give to me?
I will go find some of those and send you examples. And actually, the TWCA folks told me that they now have this commercially available insurance. Might be the easiest place to go. We have
No,
to
they
go-
said, they told Cindy, when Cindy called, they said they already covered that. It's in our existing policy. What you want Cindy to do is to purchase additional insurance policy from a third party, which TWA, not TWCA
Yeah, that's
anymore. TWA says you can contact this insurer. When we contact them, they said no, we do not issue such policy unless you are creating a subsidiary.
Okay, well,
Which
then we
is
need to
not
go
the
to
case.
other insurance companies, because all of my districts have this kind of policy.
That's what I'm saying, is if you have all those knowledge and current policy examples, send it to us, we can
Yeah.
take a look into it.
Well, I'd be happy to.
But I still didn't get the board
I think look at
answer saying,
somewhere between an extra
by-
10 to an extra 50 or something.
okay,
Don't y'all think, like some 10, 15, 20, and 50?
I'm thinking 50. That's kind of the ballpark I was thinking. was
What
50.
Ron said?
okay,
What?
Would you say, Ron, the typical numbers?
What, $300 a year, but that covers, you know, you slander somebody, you hurt somebody in a car accident, or, you know, that sort of
It's
thing.
liability as opposed to.
It's liability insurance.
And D&O is liability insurance for acts in your
Role as-
official role as a director.
When you were mentioning to Ron, you talking about like $1 million, or what were you thinking?
That's why I asked, yeah, he said $1 million to $10 million.
Is that what you're
I
thinking?
think that's what he said,
Is that what you're wanting June to shop?
why not?
Well, I would think we would shop different levels.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, that might be,
let's use
I don't
it as
know.
an example.
yeah, let's see what he's got.
He's already got it, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, did we vote? Or are we still
You
discussing?
haven't
we
voted
haven't
yet.
voted yet.
Yeah, let's see what Andy said.
Well, so we gave June some direction. Do you have the direction? He's looking for,
The direction so far I heard is Andy is gonna give me the example for me to shop.
I'll be happy to do that, and I believe that the ultimate answer is you can buy as much as they will sell, and the more you buy, the higher the premium.
well,
Well,
that's
like any-
true with anything.
That's just like any insurance. So it seems to me that, you know,
We gave him, so
And-
let's
and-
give him a number. Let's give
I'm
him a
saying, I said to
ballpark.
50,000 and
Let's
Mark
move
Ramsey
on.
says $1 million.
$1 million, yeah,
well, that's one gnarly lawsuit if you have $1 million in legal fees. I would say 50 to 100 would be the maximum you'd wanna go.
There you go.
I'm good.
There
I'm
you
good
go.
with that. We got a number.
Okay,
And,
Kelly,
the premiums range in the $1,500 to $2,500 range for lower amounts. So I don't know exactly what the number is, but that's easily discernible.
okay. Is your motion for Mr. Chang to investigate some insurance policies
Up
They
at
go
the range of 50.
up to the range of $50,000 to $100,000?
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Sound good, board? Director Ramsey? You think it's not enough?
Can't hear you.
We didn't discuss anything personal.
We can't hear you.
Well, and in truth, the insurance is a low-cost, option for a threshold amount, and if it goes over that, you still have this policy.
Okay, we're just voting on Mr. Chang to look into some insurance policies. Okay, we have the motion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed say no. Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carries. Regarding the order adopting a policy and procedure regarding reimbursement of private defense costs, and this policy that needs updating, does the whole board recognize this thing needs updating for him to come back, or do y'all wanna vote on suspending the rules and voting on this tonight?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Was this language, was it kind of generated by yourself or Zach or somebody out of whole cloth? Or is this patterned after something y'all used before?
This is patterned after policy that we have in place in other districts.
Okay.
And
I'm good.
perhaps cities.
Well, it does need several revisions.
Yeah,
Is there
well,
any
let's just
revi-
postpone this till next month then.
If there are any revisions, please send them to me. This was meant as a starting point.
Well, you've got the expungement of records, and if there's a settlement reached, then that poses a problem too, right?
So can you, when you get this updated, can you email us a copy?
Oh, sure.
Maybe in the next, 2-week deadline?
Okay.
Okay, so are we gonna postpone it? Does that sound like a
Right.
plan?
Mark
Oh.
wanted to go,
Director Ramsey?
there was still a request for
If
executive
if-
session.
My opinion is, we're dealing with fire here, and if we need to make some tweaks to something that's already been in place in multiple MUDs over multiple years, if not decades, we should go ahead and adopt it and then make the changes at our next meeting.
I'm not, this was put on at the last hour and we haven't seen it. We have to, then if you wanna vote on the suspending the 21-day rule,
To Ron's point, we have not let the 21-day rule stop us on putting things in fast.
Well,
No.
I would like, I did not read the whole thing.
I haven't read it at all.
I've read most of it, but not all of it.
Okay, so do you wanna make a motion that to suspend the 21-day rule so we can vote on this?
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Director Ramsey's moved to suspend the 21-day rule. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no?
No.
No. Okay. So,
Now, can we move to postponing it?
sure.
Well, or
Well, we
actually,
just did
that,
that.
we just did that because
Yeah.
it requires 21.
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
Now, what about
And
executive session?
any comments anyone has, please send them on, and we'll get it out as soon as possible.
Okay. So we'll see that in a couple of weeks. All right.
We're still, are we gonna do an executive session, or do we need to?
No.
or-
Do we need to go into executive session for anything? Director Ramsey? Have we already discussed it all? Did you wanna discuss more in executive session?
No comment.
We didn't discuss anything personal. Okay, agenda item 13, board discussion of potential future agenda items. Any director have anything?
Yeah, I think we ought to just waive that, delete that, 21-day rule, cause it's not working.
What if we turn into like 7 days or something, cause we can't have something the last hour.
Doesn't seem like it's being a problem, but
Well,
we'll get it in by whatever.
Every time we do, Director Ramsey said, I haven't had a chance to look at it. Every time.
That was the reason for having it.
You have said that, yes.
I've said that about the minutes.
Well, that's
No,
ridiculous.
there was some policy changes, and you hadn't had a chance to read them, and I remember the same statement.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll consider, maybe changing.
I'll let, and I'll communicate with Andy
Okay,
next week,
If you wanna get rid of it,
Within
then
21
it's another
days.
policy change, so.
yeah.
I'd like it to be at least 7 days, cause we have had
We
directors.
don't need it.
Well,
As
But then
long
we-
as we get it on Thursday or whatever it is, we get our stuff. When do we get our stuff? Thursday, Friday, or?
well, it needs to be about a deadline of an agenda item.
Yep.
Okay, I have two things. We're not in alignment on our water rates and the fund balance, how much the fund balance could be. And should we lower the water rate, should we increase the water rates back, as Director Graham tried to do? How long can we sustain the water rates? So I believe
Well, we've got-
Leslie Cook can, she's our co-financial advisor. I think she'd be a good third-party opinion, and this would be just something that she does for us. And she could be someone that looks into it and gives us a report on something we need to vote on. I'm just letting you know that we need to figure out, because the board's in disagreement, we're split on how long can we sustain the rates we have now, since we're selling water cheaper than we're buying it? How low can our fund balance be? How long is that gonna last us? So I think we might all would agree that we need to,
I think that's a fair
Get it.
agenda item. I I think it's a good discussion to have.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's Director Graham's, or, you know, we're split on if we should increase it or not, or, the other thing is, this Harris Galveston Subsidence District letter, so far, the staff has run the numbers, it has cost us between $15,000 and $37,000 on a letter. And I'd like the board to know that, and, these are, Mr. Chang put together the direct charges and then possibly shared charges. That's why it's as much as $37,000. I think this is a lot of money for this letter that we've been working on for a long time, and we need to figure out if we're gonna keep going this route or what, so. Now the board knows.
Can you send that to us? What is that?
Mr.
Legal
Chang,
fees?
Mr. Chang put this together. It's
That's
how much.
Legal fees or what?
Yeah, legal fees from, Johnson Petrov's office on the cost of this letter. Between $15,000 and $37,000. It's getting, very expensive. We gotta figure out a direction, board. All right, anyone else have anything for the next meeting? Okay, the next regular meeting, will be February the 3rd, 2025. If there's nothing else, board, at 8:51, we are adjourned.